Hey the world. This week I'm on vacation with my family at a little water park down in Florida. And the last time that we came down to Florida for a trip, we ended up getting a cabin and it did not have Wi-Fi, TV, basic modern things like that. So we had a lot of fun, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, but we were a little bored at night. So with anticipation of that, I brought a couple things with me this time. Although clearly I didn't need it because this one has, it's a super nice place. Has everything you could possibly want. Has its own arcade on the site, and of course it's a water park, right? But I still brought with me a couple things. One that I brought was a Android TV box that I got from TEMU, and I actually won this to the games, but I do not recommend playing the games at this point. They're just too hard to win. The other thing I got was a 10.1 inch monitor LCD screen that I bought from TEMU. It was about $52, and that was with, of course, tax and shipping's free and all that. So I just wanted to show those off. I brought these so that me and my kids could, play some games we would not typically play. Usually we're not going to bust out and play the old, arcade games at the house or Super Genesis, things like that. My kids just don't have that interest. But here, where they are in a confined space and there's not as many options, I've actually had a pretty good time playing some classics with my kids. So these are my thoughts on these items. And this is it. This is what I'm playing this weekend with the kids. It's called the Gamebox, and on the actual device itself it says the G11 Pro. There's multiple versions of this you can find online, but TEMU sells this for around $60. So here's our specs. We have a Amlogic S905X3 with 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of storage built in. It's got Wi-Fi. You got 2 controllers it comes with. This runs Android 9. There's no updates for it, at least not so far. And emulate 4.4 is installed on the SD card itself. So this is it. This is the G11 Pro that comes inside the box. Now there's multiple versions of this console, so just make sure if you want this one that you find the G11 Pro. So you have your little light indicator on the front to show that it's on or off. This has passive cooling. It's not active, so there are no fans that run. On the sides you have your USB ports, USB 1, USB 2, and your SD card slot. Now the USB 1 right now, I have the controller receivers in there, and I'll show those controllers in just a second. On the back you have an AV port. You got your power button where your power goes in, your HDMI cable, and of course a LAN cable. That side, nothing. And yeah, that's the bottom. The game box. So as far as what comes with it, you also get this remote, which comes in handy mostly for the Android side. I don't think I've used it at all for emulate. And then these are the controllers you get. You get 2 of them. They use AAA batteries, which are not included, so keep that in mind. And yeah, they work. They're cheap. They feel like PlayStation controllers, really cheap PlayStation controllers, but they do work. And here's the monitor that I purchased off TEMU. This cost around $52. So pretty solid deal, I think. But yeah, let's take a look at the actual monitor itself. So this is it. And again, I apologize, I'm doing this with one hand, guys. I did not bring my tripod, so I'm doing the best I can. This monitor is it's worked out pretty well so far. It has this little stand that it comes with, and you have your 2 speakers on the back, and that's what these are right here. Sound is loud but not good, but I guess for something small and cheap it's okay. As far as your inputs go, you literally have so many inputs. I mean, you have VGA, you have HDMI, you have AV. There's a USB port. I mean, there's lots of things for you to do, or lots of things you can plug into this device. And what's crazy is that they all come inside this box cable-wise, right? It gives you a VGA cable. It gives you an HDMI cable. It gives you an AV cable. It gives you a remote. It basically gives you everything you could possibly need to get this thing up and running. There's a lot of systems pre-installed on this emulate device, on this Android device, and they're all going to run just fine for the most part. So these old things you don't have to worry about, right? The only 2 you really have to kind of wonder, well, there's 3. PSP is going to be one. Now, PSP-wise, I added Dragon Ball Shin Budokai, and it works perfectly. Crisis Core works pretty well. Tekken's okay. This had God of War on there originally and Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories, and they just didn't play that well, so I just took them off. Vice City Stories played, but it wasn't amazing. So let's just jump into a game. Alright, so here's some Dragon Ball Budokai. And as you can see, this thing is going to work just fine. Although my skills are not necessarily there. Man, I love some Xenoverse, though. I've played the heck out of some Xenoverse, and this is definitely a different control scheme. But it looks great, plays great. So Dreamcast will run okay, depending on which game you pick. Basically, you pick the best emulator you can and see how it works. Alright, Crazy Taxi, audio-wise, I know I have it turned down so you can't hear, but it is definitely glitching out. It doesn't sound great. Gameplay-wise, let's see how we do. Yeah. If you've played Crazy Taxi, you know this thing should be speeding, right? It should be flying. And clearly it's not. It speeds up a little bit there, but as soon as we get back to driving, yeah, we are chugging. Crazy Taxi 2 is the same way. Is this playable? Sure. Would you want to play it? Probably not. Here's some Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on the Dreamcast. Let's see how this works. Alright, so this is the kind of thing where sprite-based games, even though it has 3D backgrounds, are going to work just fine. You're not going to have any issues here. N64 is your other mixed bag. I mean, you're going to have some things that run great and other things that just, not so much. Alright, so yeah, like Cruising World, which is a little bit more difficult one to run. It's kind of like Crazy Taxi, where it's playing, but it's not playing at full speed. So could you play it? Sure. But again, this is not one that you probably want to play. But there's a lot of N64 games on here that'll run just fine at full speed. And honestly, this one's not doing too bad either. And the last part to look at really is just the Android box on here. Now, this runs Android 9, and it is okay. So what you want to think about is there's some games you just really can't play on the emulator side that you might be able to play on the Android side. So a good example would be Grand Theft Auto Vice City. And let's just take a look at that, see how it plays. Because this is always an option when you are using one of these little devices. You do not have to use just the emulators. And this is the reason I point this out, is because this game runs pretty well on here. We are basically with all the settings maxed out, and it's completely playable. Pop-in's a little annoying to say the least, but that's just how this game runs on Android. Ouch, just hit that. Let's get out of this car and run around. But like, as you can see, this is Vice City, and it plays just the way like the mobile version should, which is pretty darn close to their original version. So here's the Crazy Taxi app that is on the App Store, the game, and this runs just fine, as you will see. So while you can't play it on, whoops, I'm in the wrong gear. While you can't play this game on the Dreamcast emulator very well, you can play it just fine on the Android side. It'll run at full speed. The audio's compressed, but it's okay. And graphics wise, there's not really the options here, so you get what you get. But It doesn't look quite as good to me as the Dreamcast version, the Android version, but you are getting that real experience here, just like you would if you were playing Crazy Taxi back in the day. All right, here's Real Racing 3. This thing kind of plays on every device, I think, Android-wise, but this is one of the more impressive looking games that you don't even need a very powerful system to play it on, and this will play smooth and look pretty. So you're not forced to stick with something like Emulate. I mean, you can run Android, and it runs just fine. As long as you're playing older games, all these games that I showed you today work with no issues, and it kind of gives you a good variation. Grand Theft Auto Vice City ran fine. Crazy Taxi ran fine. Real Racing runs fine. Streets of Rage 2 runs fine. And then, of course, you can run your own emulators on there. Like I have Redream downloaded, which does work a little better than the ones like Flycast, in my opinion, that are on the Emulate build. And then, of course, PPSSPP, which was already running through Emulate, but you can just run it directly here, and is a little bit more intuitive, a little bit more user-friendly. All right, let's talk about the screen. The screen works well. It's 10.1 inches, which is big enough that if you're going to play something that's right in front of you, you're not going to have any issues seeing it. There was a dead pixel on my screen. I don't think you could really see it in the video, but it was there, literally one dead pixel kind of right in the middle of the screen. But you don't notice it when you're playing. You just notice it when it first fires on. So maybe it does light up after it plays for a little bit. You have lots of video inputs. You have loudspeakers, so they don't have any bass basically at all. For $52, it's a good travel monitor. As far as the Gamebox goes, I mean, these controllers are kind of junk, so you probably want to get better controllers at some point. Don't expect to play the newest top games off it, because you can't. But you can play a heck of a lot of older games on there. And that goes for older Android games as well. For me, and on this trip, both of these items were great. They're both lightweight, they're both small, they're both cheap, so I'm not afraid of, if something happened to them and they broke. I'd be upset, of course, but I wouldn't be distraught. Hey, but I just appreciate you guys watching my videos. If you like this kind of stuff, subscribe if you haven't already. Like the videos, that really helps. And as always, make any comments, and I will do my best to reach back out to you. I really do try to get back to all the comments. So thank you for watching, and you guys enjoy the rest of your day.